Hi, Michael. Aloha. It's a beautiful warm night here in Waikiki, and I'm getting ready to go to bed, but I was able to get some bandwidth. And I have to say that that question has really been like a kind of a virus inside my psyche all week. That question that you ask as to why do we allow our government leaders to take our bright and beautiful young men and women and turn them into paid murderers and just why do we accept that as okay when it's the opposite of why we're really here and doesn't fit in at all with the grand cosmic scheme of things, which you and I have talked about in our video series. So I've been asking myself that and kind of like pondering the question, like it says in the Course in Miracles, be with the question, and the answer will appear right where the question is. I'm also blending your question, why do we allow that, with some of my other research. I just finished Carl Jung's biography, and he talks about when he had to go and do his military service in Switzerland and how he absolutely hated it, and he did everything he could to get out of it, and he figured out ways to get out of it as best he could, and it planted seeds in his own developing psyche about the choice we have within each of us to act out the shadow, which is the attacker, the violent being that percolates below us, to act out our more primitive selves, or to evolve and become more spiritual and more enlightened and more awake. So Carl Jung's answer to your question, why do we allow that? Why do we allow our ignorant and maladjusted, psychotic and neurotic governmental leaders turn our malleable, beautiful young men and women into paid murderers and killers? And Jung's answer was, and we talk about this in our video Out and About with Brewer and Berg, the lethargy that the human race is suffering from major, big time. You even mention it when you say Caesar explained that, or one of the Roman philosophers said that Caesar said, give them bread and circuses and they will not revolt. Well, that's what our governments do. They give us just enough bread and just enough circuses that we allow them to then do certain things like turn our youngsters into military gangsters. We turn our back because we're just too lethargic to stand up, get off our butts, and do something about it. Now, I'd like to add my idea onto Carl Jung's and suggest what I have to own myself. It's fear. Marianne Williamson was just did a YouTube thing with Wayne Dwyer, and she quotes her own new book, The Age of Miracles, where she talks about the responsibility that those of us who lived through the 60s and 70s have to the younger generation, that we have walked away from our responsibility, that we knew things were really screwed up, that the military industrial complex had basically taken over the world with the banksters, and that the whole structure was set up to keep conflict going, to keep wars going always, because that's how big bucks are made. And the system, the worldwide capitalistic system right now, exists not to save the planet, but to keep the people pacified enough to do their little wage slave jobs and to keep the money rolling in. And so She also suggests that we look at why have we allowed our societies to turn us into wage slaves, military murderers, and docile lemmings without a will to actually be free, to actually live free. Why don't we break out of our bread and circuses framework of looking at our lives and say, wait a minute, we deserve so much more joy, so much more bliss, so much more happiness than what these systems are actually able to provide us. Because, of course, they say they will provide us with the creature comforts if we do their bidding, if we let them do and continue to do their violence upon the environment, their violence upon our youth. So I think the other aspect of the answer, if we were going to be really honest, and if I had to be honest with myself, I would say it's fear. And that's what Marianne talks about with Wayne. She talks about, and I was really grateful to hear her talk so bluntly, about the effect psychologically on all of us of JFK's assassination in '63, Bobby Kennedy's assassination in '68, Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination in '68, Malcolm X's assassination, and then the killing of the 4 Kent State students who were on the cover of Life magazine. Remember the girl with her arms up? She suggested, and Wayne agreed, and I agree, that that psychologically wounded our generation and basically set us up to go into the Reagan era, which was put on a happy face, go start your little business, and mind your own business. We'll let you do whatever you want to do as long as you're willing to work for it, as long as you're willing to labor for it. You have the freedom to work and labor however you want to work and labor. Just don't question or upset the apple cart. Don't question the dominant paradigm, which is that war is profitable. In fact, it is the most profitable way that the world capitalistic structure has of continually producing more and more of this now, which is basically electronic wealth, not even real. And I'm having to look at really why I'm afraid not to pay my taxes. I mean, the YouTube is great because they've been sending around, and I want to thank Pete for this too, videos in which it has now been proven that the income tax law here in America is completely and totally illegal. It was never ratified by all the states in the Constitution, and there is actually no law in the books that says that income taxes must be paid. And yet, the IRS has set up an SS kind of Gestapo that comes house to house with guns ready to go and tasers to shoot you or take you into custody if you refuse to pay your taxes. So, if those Swiss boys refuse to go, or if we refuse to pay our taxes, we need to wake up and realize, you know what, this isn't freedom anymore. We're in a dictatorship, and it's a brave new world. It's like Animal Farm. Just because we have a lot of channels on our little channel robot controls to watch TV, and just because we have certain creature comforts, bread and circuses, it doesn't mean we're really free. And so I think the reason that we let our governments brainwash and program our children into only one world view, grow up, get a job, be a good little zombie, a good little lemming, do your job for the system, and we'll let you alone. The reason we allow that is because we're afraid. We're afraid what will happen to us, that we'll be imprisoned or we'll be taken to Guantanamo. Or, in fact, here in the islands, my local friends have said, you must be, don't be afraid. I mean, they'd be afraid to publish my book, Uncle Tom's Classroom, because they say that they'd be afraid they would end up in Guantanamo for saying that the government was trying to turn our children into Uncle Toms. Our government is trying to turn us all into Uncle Toms, just like the Swiss government is trying to turn those boys into militaristic Uncle Toms. And I wish we weren't so afraid, and I don't have the answer. We need to somehow download a lot of divine courage to break out of this invisible prison and turn it into a planetary paradise.